format of this meeting is two 10-minute speakers and a main speaker. Our first 10-minute speaker is John L.
My name is John Lincoln. I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank Mary for asking me to speak. Speaking just always reminds me of boxing. I want to do it. I just want to do it tonight. And, I'd like to welcome you people in your first 30 days, you people in your last 30 days. That door swings both ways. It was very apparent to me when I got here. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I'd been arrested 12 times. There were 3 cars going the same street, but that could happen to anybody. But it was very apparent. I was very uncomfortable. It was very apparent to me that you people knew something I didn't know. And that's what I've learned here in AA is to live my life comfortably without drinking or using anything. And, it's funny, Culver City Courthouse used to be right across the street. I had 3 separate arrests pending against me and 1 in West LA. I got arrested every other week for 2 months. And I didn't think I had a problem. It was my solution. I hated life. 60s are so turbulent. They shot everybody. The Vietnam War, I don't hate our veterans. I just hated that war. And, I really, looking back, I don't know how I survived from 68 to 70. The things I was doing, the people I was running with. I remember I got in a fight. I got choked unconscious in the fight. If he'd held on just for a little bit longer, I wouldn't be here, And anyway, so like I said, sober 37 years now, and Class 84. Some of us thieves, some of us whore were the Class 84, and that was very important in my sobriety. Was I wasn't talking to anybody. I was very grim. I was sitting in the back of Ohio Street, not talking to anybody, trying to figure it out. And Jill and Andy and I, we started hanging out, and they got me to go to the yard, and then they helped me a lot. And then I had this great golden retriever, and we'd go for a walk on Sunday. We'd go to Venice Beach or to the Santa Monica Promenade every Sunday. And I'd always see Mike Dixon walking with a different good-looking girl. I wondered what he had. And so I hooked up with Mike, and Mike was on fire about AA, and he still is, and he helped me so much, you know what I mean? And it's important to get people that are in the center of AA in your life, and here in the Pacific group and any other group you're in, don't stay on the outside like I did for a while. Get in the middle and do everything, and and it's a good life, like I said, I was born here in Santa Monica in 1948. I'm 73. And my mom was an orphan in the Great Depression, and moved out here from the great state of Indiana, and had me. I never knew my father. I heard he came to see me one time, but that was it. My relatives, when they became comfortable with me, told me later that my dad dropped my mom for a rich blonde. That's why my mother never talked about him. But anyway, so I grew up, and nothing special about me. High school dropout, just drinking and using, and going to jail, and then and Gabe always says I talk about boxing, and he's kind of right. You know why? Because the first time in my life, I was 26, I did something. I absolutely loved boxing, and not the violence, like Nelson Mandela says, but the science of boxing. And I absolutely loved it. And when I was 26, I go, if I don't do it this year, I'm never going to do it. So I started training down on 78th and Hoover, and I was about the only white boy down there. And my whole life, I've never fitted I've always felt uncomfortable. But I tell you, when I got to that door to go into that gym, that was my world. I fit in for once, man. I won the diamond belt, I won the AAU, I won the golden gloves. When I won the golden gloves, I knocked out this defector from the Yugoslavian boxing team. That's how long ago it was. There's no more Yugoslavia. He had 102 fights. I was having my 12th or 13th fight, and I had to go to the doctor the day of the fight, sick to my stomach with fear. And everything can be said about boxing. It was my easiest fight, and I knocked him out in the second round, get best fight of the tournament. Absolutely love boxing. But my point is I couldn't stop drinking. As much as I loved boxing, I couldn't stop drinking. And it's a progressive disease. My drinking in 75 was a little different than it was 79. And I want to win the Golden Gloves again. I'm fighting Tony Stern at the Olympic. He throws 3 punches. I catch the first 2, slipped the third, countered the body. Next thing I heard was 6. And, I beat the count, and next thing I know, the referee, Lou Filippo, is stopping the fight, and I'm shouting and pleading with him not to stop the fight. It's all over in 54 seconds. And a couple days later, I found out I was down twice. I don't remember anything about the second knockdown. And, victories are nice, but sometimes, same thing here in AA, victories are nice, but sometimes it's how you handle your defeats. And when I went down to that gym, I got sober finally. I went down to that all-black gym down 78th and Hoover, and I'm not exaggerating. They all ran over to shake my hand, because they'd seen me get up twice, and they knew I loved boxing. Maybe I loved it more than my own life. I loved it like they did. And I probably got more respect for losing that fight the way I did than if I'd won it, because they knew I absolutely loved boxing. And after I quit boxing, I really started drinking. Like I said, it was a progressive disease, and I was living with this girl, and she got sick of me and took off, and I was kind of happy now I could really drink, and so I went from middleweight to a heavyweight in a heartbeat, and I'd hurt my back, so I'm soaking in the tub, and I'm looking at me, and I go, what the hell happened to me? And at one time I was a middleweight, now I'm a heavyweight, and it's like, and that started the process of thinking that something was wrong with my life. Something's wrong, and I ended up in AA. My friend Marvin, he lives right down the street from me. I live 2 minutes from here, and he saw me working one day. I'm a gardener, I have a tree service, and he's all on that spiritual high a lot of people get, that pink cloud when they first get sober. And he gave me a Diet Pepsi, and he's talking AA to me, and I quit drinking on my own. And this is how I know I'm an alcoholic. Instead of my life getting better, my life turned into a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I was sick to my stomach. Everything I ate went right through me. And he goes, yeah, come to AA, man. It's about not drinking. I go, Marvin, I'm not drinking. And then I needed AA, and I started going to AA with him, and there was cookies to eat and girls to stare at, so I kept coming back. And my Marvin didn't make it. We married him about 6 years ago. And, man, that's part of life, man. Me and Marvin, I love Marvin. He's one of my best friends, and we chased the girls, drank, partied, wrestled, boxed. Man, we did it all, man. And this disease got him. But he got me here, and I've stayed here. And, until I started boxing, like I said, I never did a thing, I got sober, and I went to the International in Montreal. And Clancy spoke there, and that was 1985. And, I learned traveling isn't so difficult. And I've been to Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Holland, Germany, Switzerland. And, I'm not rich, but I know how to do things cheap. Last time I flew to Thailand 3 years ago, I booked it 9 months in advance for $559 and round trip. And so I get out there, I knew it. And that's one thing AA's taught me, And anyway, it's time to stop. And I owe everything in my life to AA. I had no life before this. And I'd like to thank you all for my life. And a newcomer, stay here. Thank you.
Our second 10-minute speaker is Bobby Joe A.
Bobby Joe, alcoholic.
Bobby Joe.
Thank you, Mary, for asking me to participate tonight. John, that was great, but I couldn't hear anything because I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to say? It's always so nerve-wracking. I've been here. I'm going to be 8 years sober, and I've been here, and it's still, I know half this room, if not everybody, and it's still nerve-wracking, right? I grew up in Montebello. I don't speak Spanish. I'm Hispanic. My sponsor, Yvonne, speaks more Spanish than me, And that was a resentment. I grew up with a lot of resentments. I've always felt alone. Even in a house full of people, I felt alone. I had tons of friends. I felt alone. I don't know why. Today, I could walk in this room and it's weird. I come in early, I sit with my sponsor, and I don't feel any different than anybody in this room. Nobody grew up the way I did, maybe some have, but I just feel like we're kindred spirits, and that's comfortable for me. It really is. And I was a heavy drinker plus other things, outside issues that got me to survive my life. In my head, my life was horrible. My dad was a demon. He lives with me. I still think he's a demon, but I love him today. And that's one of the gifts, right? Because I was not an easy daughter, and I've never told this, but at 14, I was arrested, and I was going to court, and I don't know what's going on, and, I always had jewelry on, and we're in court, and I'm just, I'm 14. I don't know what they're going to do, and next thing I know, the bailiff comes to me and the judge says something, and I'm just like, what's going on? And they start telling me to take off my jewelry, and I look at my dad, and my mom's crying, and my dad is kind of crying, and they give him my jewelry. And I'm shackled, and I'm being hauled off to juvie. And, my sister had told me when, a couple of years after that, do you realize how you hurt Pop? And that he went crying home for that whole time. And I was just like, well, he deserved it. He should never had me arrested all those times, right? Today I look at him and I'm grateful that I get to take care of him. I'm grateful because, that I was not an easy child. I had kids. I thought those kids were going to save me, and unfortunately, they did not. They just ran the life with me, and, I lost them in Mexico. Well, I kind of placed them there, but, they weren't necessarily lost. But, they got stuck there for about 10 months, and how do you deal with that, right? I dealt with it the way I knew how, and I drank and I used all I could just to forget about that. That's how I am. And today when we have issues, I don't need to put anything in my body to deal with them. I get to talk to them. I get to tell them, I love you, I'm here, I'm sorry. And that's just because of AA. I had an accident once. There have been a lot of times where my family is like, what are you doing? You could have. I was in an accident. I don't remember because I had a concussion. I know we were drinking, and we were on our way to go get more beer, and I don't know, all I know is I ended up in county hospital, and my sister picked me up, and they told her that I was like a little war soldier. I just kept repeating my information and her number, and that was it, like her phone number and my information, and that's all I could say. And she got me home, and she was like, do you realize if the kids were in the car? And I was like, but they weren't. It's okay. You know, and I think about that now. Yeah, I'm lucky that those kids weren't in the car with me while we were driving to go get more beer. But that's how it was, you know, and today I get to think about stuff like that. I don't have road rage anymore sometimes, but I get to think about that, right? My kids, when they're in their car, they're like, Mom, and I'm like, I know. And I just let people pass me, and I'm like, and sometimes it slips, and then I see it's an older person driving, I'm like, man, I'm sorry. You know, but that's great because they get to see the growth in me, and that's what I love about AA. It's not only that I'm growing, but I get to show them, right? You know, how I got sober was the DCFS came involved in my life. You know, I had 4 kids. They took that youngest one, and that was the eye-opener. Like, it was different when I placed my kids with my sister to watch them, and I had access to them. But when somebody comes and tells you, like, no, you're not going to watch them, they're removed from your custody, that I was just kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't like this part. So, you know, I got into program, and I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I knew I had issues with outside issues, but I never thought I was an alcoholic. And it's amazing, right? I love H&I panels because that's where it happened for me. I heard my sponsor, and her story is just amazing. I love it, and it just hit me. And I was like, oh, should I ask her? And my best friend was like, yeah, ask her. So I asked her, and man, if you know Yvonne, you know she just like swoops you in, and you're just like in the middle of it, whether you want to or not. And I'm so afraid, I'm a people pleaser, that I was just like, okay, yeah, you know, and I'm going to Mountain High, I'm meeting people, you know, and it's all still uncomfortable because I don't think I'm like you. Like, I'm different. I'm not educated. I'm a dropout. I'm trash. I'm this, like, everything that would play in my head on the person I thought I was. And little by little, you know, I just turned around and I started doing this thing. I listened to my sponsor. We were talking about it a little while ago, like how many times she was like, do you need a new sponsor? And I was like, no, I don't. And, you know, and I fall in line because I don't want a new sponsor. I love my sponsor. And just because she gives me a direction that I don't like, I just keep my mouth quiet and I do it, you know? I mean, that's all I can do. I've learned, like, just to shut up and do what she says. And that's different than what I've always known. I think she's the only one I've ever listened to in my life like that. Thank you, Yvonne. I really love you. Thank you. You know, life today is nothing like it was. I get to smile and like genuinely love who I am. I remember a couple of years ago when I told Yvonne, like, for the first time I felt comfortable at work. And you know, where I work, everybody's educated, you know, I mean, it's a county job, everybody's been there for years and this and that, and here I am, I barely got in. Like, my investigator that was doing my background check, he told my sponsor, like, he didn't know what to say, like, he did not want to, like, put me in that job, but he just seen that transformation. He even asked me one time, he was like, I don't understand. How did you get your cases dismissed? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, did you know the judge? And I'm like, no. You know, God's always done for me, and I don't know why. I don't question it. It just is what it is. And you know, it's funny because I cleared out my warrants. I thought I cleared out all my warrants, and then just recently, December, I found out I had another warrant. And that's how lucky I am, right? Because with that background check, if that warrant would have showed up, I would have never got in my position. It automatically would have disqualified me. I don't know how it happened or what, but I did what AA's taught me to do. I cleared out that warrant. I made time. I went out to San Bernardino. I said, here I am. the judge was like, Alva, this is a 2009 case. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, I can't even read it. Do you have your driver's license? And I was like, yeah. She's like, dismissed. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you, right? Like, thank you. It just, I wish that that investigator would have been like, how does it happen? I don't know, you know? I don't know. Like I said, my father, my mom passed away when I was 18. This disease took her out. My dad lives with me, and it's hard. It's hard to have so many years of resentment towards somebody, to blame one person for my whole life being just horrible, to be able to look at him while he's laying down and have love for him and be like, darn, I'm blessed to be able to do that. And that's AA, right? Today, life is amazing. I go to work, I go to a meeting, I go home, I take care of my kids. I mean, it sounds boring, but it's actually not. It's like I don't have to worry about if I'm driving, I'm going to get arrested, or am I going to get a ticket, or I have to pay this person, or where am I going to find money for this? I went on a vacation while my sponsor took me to Belize. That was amazing. I've never left LA County. Well, San Bernardino, but that doesn't count. That don't count. It's like these experiences, and now I'm like my daughter's going to be 18, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to take her on a cruise. I feel like I'm all, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know, I'm a traveler now. I'm going to say it like that, but that's the greatest thing, I don't have to worry about it. If the kids want to go out to eat, I could take them out to eat. If the kids, I bought my daughter some tickets to go to a musical. Me and a musical. I'm like, yeah, let's go, it's going to be fun. I think I'm going to like it. Like, I can't believe I'm a nerd like that, But thank you so much, you guys. It's been an honor, and thank you.
Our main speaker tonight is Patrice T.
Nice to meet you. Oops. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrice, and I'm an alcoholic. So I got two messages on my way here. The first message was from my friend Constance to all of our sponsors, all our sober sisters, and she said, Patrice is speaking at the scariest meeting in Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I just got a message from another friend who said, just breathe in faith and breathe out fear, and know you are loved. I am so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank Mary for asking me to come and share. This is my first live meeting in 2 years. I've been on crutches for 2 years, so I haven't really been able to do much. But I'm glad that we had Zoom, and that I had a place to go, and that I wasn't alone sitting in my lazy boy with my crutch. My sobriety date is January 9th, 1979, so I'm the class of 79. Yay. Just to give you a little background, I come from an alcoholic household. My father was an alcoholic. I'm one of 6 children, Irish Catholic. And my father stopped drinking when I was about 5, and he was dry for about 7 years. I started drinking when I was about 13, but I always felt different, like you hear that, in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I just want to welcome the newcomers and say hi to all my friends on Zoom, and welcome the newcomers that are on Zoom. And I hope that you find here everything that I have found here, because I came in broken and lost, and not knowing how to live life. And I found all the answers. I didn't know that simple kit of spiritual tools that were laid at my feet, I didn't know that they were going to save my life. And I didn't know that those spiritual tools were spiritual. I just thought they were things that I had to do, and instructions that my sponsor gave me, go greet someone, go talk with someone, get commitments. I just thought they were commitments. I didn't know that they were going to save my life. And my first drink was, I had drank because my grandmother lived with us, and she was an alcoholic, and she would always say to me, I'll give you some sips of beer if you go get me another can. And so I said yes, and so I tasted beer, but it wasn't until I was 13 that I had my first sort of drunk, but it was the perfect, I reached that perfect point where, I love what Carl Morris says. He says, we come in and everything was sort of black and white before I started drinking. And the minute I took a drink, everything became colorful. I was at a dance. My girlfriends and I, we split, alcohol, and I felt funny and outgoing and a part of and relaxed. I felt relaxed for the first time, I feel, in my whole life. I just felt like I could take a deep breath. And I just remember walking home with my boyfriend at the time, and looking at the stars, and everything was wonderful. And that was the last time that I ever had an experience like that. Father Terry always talks about how, drinking sometimes was a spiritual experience for us. And it was for me that one time, but I never reached that again, because I always shot over the mark. I always overdid it. And I remember my friends always saying, Patty, why do you have to overdo everything? And I just overdid everything. And when I was in high school, I drank as much as I could. We used to send little notes to my girlfriends in high school. And when I was moving and I was going through all my things in July, I found all these notes. It was all about alcohol. When were we going to get alcohol this weekend? Who was going to get it? Because we weren't of age, so we always had to try and get it from someone. And I just drank through high school. I was very outgoing. I was a cheerleader. I was into sports, and I did all of these things. But I always felt like I was trying to keep it together, that I was just trying to keep life together, and I was trying to be like you. I would look at my friends, and I wish that I could be like them. I never knew who I was, and I never wanted to be like me. And during this time, my father started drinking again, and it was really bad. After high school, I ended up in nursing school, and I remember thinking, I am not going to drink during the week. I'm going to study. I really wanted to be a nurse. And I'm going to study. I'm going to do everything I can. But then the weekends would come, and I was someone who, I always had a stomach ache. I think, John, you were talking about it. Thank you, John, for your share, and Bobby Joe, wonderful. And But I was always late for work, and I worked every weekend, and I was in nursing school. I was always late for work, and I always had an excuse. And the hangovers that I had, and the second semester I just started drinking during the week because I couldn't stop. And in my last semester of nursing school, we were studying the social diseases of gonorrhea, syphilis, and alcoholism. And they had this guy come and talk with us about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was sort of a room like this, and I remember where I was sitting, and I remember the guy that came in. I don't remember who he was or what he said, but I went up to him after the meeting, and my father had almost decapitated himself on the George Washington Bridge the week before and ended up in the emergency room while I was working there with all my friends. And I went up to him and I said, my father is an alcoholic, and can I have some of these pamphlets? And he gave me some of these pamphlets, and it just so happened that on that same day, my dad was on a bus coming home from New York City, and he ran into an old friend of his, Pat McIntyre. And Pat asked my dad if he was done, and because he could see how bad he looked, and he said yes. And when I got home that night from school with my little pamphlets, I walked into the house, and there were about 3 or 4 guys sitting around the kitchen table. And the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous started for my father and for our family, because it was destroying our family. And so my dad started going to AA, and I love, I always love when I read the family afterwards, and it says, the AA comes in and they become the spiritual giant. And when the phone rang incessantly of AA guys calling my father, and we would call my dad. We'd say, "God, it's for you," because 3 months ago, he was on the floor, passed out, and now he is like this spiritual guru, going to AA and on this high. But we were so happy that he was going. And I'm one of 6 children, and my father started asking me if I would go to a meeting with him because he was going to take a 30-day chip. And I thought I was just going to help him and support him. And I went, and then he said, "Would you come? I'm going to take a 60-day chip." And I said yes. And a 90-day chip, yes. 6-month chip, yes. And then at a year, he celebrated his anniversary. And I never realized that I was the only child that he asked to go to meetings. I had no idea he was trying to 12-step me into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was working as a nurse at this point, and I was grateful. I remember when I got this job, I wanted a daytime job, but I got an evening job, and I remember thinking to myself, good, I won't drink as much. I won't end up in the bar as much. But I did steal from the hospital, and through AA, I was able to make those amends that we get to make here, so that we can live peacefully in harmony with the world. And I moved to California, and before I moved, my father gave me this plaque that I still have, and it was it had the Serenity Prayer on it and the praying hands. And he said, Pat, one day you're going to know what this means. And I left, and I went to California because I felt like if I could just get away from my small town in New Jersey, I would be okay. But I didn't end up on Rodeo Drive like I thought. I ended up on Western and Wilshire Boulevard, a fat speed freak, drinking every night, and killing myself in so many ways. It took me about 2 or 3 years more to get here. And during that time, I would call my father, usually at 2 a.m, and I would be crying, and I'm going to kill myself, and, crying about whatever problem I was having. And he would say to me, Pat, I picked this newcomer up today, and I took him to a meeting. It was such a great meeting. And, he's young like you. And I thought, he's always talking about himself. Why is he always talking about himself? Why is he not addressing my problems? But he never said, you're an alcoholic. He just talked about AA. And when I did finally get sober, he said to me, all I could do was be an example, good or bad, that this program works. And if I could do that, maybe you would get here. And I ended up in another 12-step program on a Monday night. I got a big book in a 12 and 12. They told me to, get someone to sponsor and call that person. And I went home, and on the food sheet it said, you can't drink for 30 days. And so when I called the woman, having had my glass of wine, I said, it says you can't drink for 30 days, but, instead of having fruit, can I have some wine? And she said, are you an alcoholic? And this is the magic here. I just thought this was coincidence. But she was a month sober in AA. And she said, are you an alcoholic? And I said, no. But I am going to drunk driving school tomorrow. Does that count? And she said, why don't you meet me tomorrow night at 2+2? And, I had hit such a bottom. I hit a spiritual, emotional, mental bottom. I just couldn't do life anymore. I lived in my blue bathrobe in my bedroom. I would go to work and I could hardly function, and I had to take care of other patients, and I made mistakes, and I would get to work late, and I just was like a mess. I felt like a train wreck. I love what my friend Philo says, it takes a lot of work to keep that alcoholic train going and that alcoholism going, and it did for me. It took a lot of work. It was so hard. And when I went to that meeting on Tuesday night, now I had been to meetings with my dad, but they were so old, a lot of Irish guys, and it was a lot of old people, it seemed. And when I went to this meeting, they were just all young people, and everyone was happy, and God is love above the podium, and I remember Joan W. was the secretary, and I just sat there, and for some reason when they asked for newcomers, I raised my hand, and I said, hi, my name's Patrice, I'm an alcoholic. And I still didn't know if I was an alcoholic or not. When I had 15 days, I called my father and I said, Daddy, I didn't want to tell him like the next day. I wanted to get a few days under my belt before I told him that I was in AA. But I called him when I had 15 days, and I was out to fellowship at juniors. I went to the payphone, and it was what was it, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I said, Daddy, I have 15 days sober. And he said, wow, that's great, babe. He says, now you know what that prayer means. Now you know what that means. And, I kept going to meetings. I don't know why, but I felt better after I went to meetings. And I didn't get a sponsor right away. I did everything you're not supposed to do, but I listened. And I remembered them telling me that if I drank every day, that I needed to go to a meeting every day. So I went to a meeting every single day, and this woman that had a month said she was my sponsor, but we were both cuckoo. And so, I really didn't have a sponsor. And then I found him, Boy Meets Girl, on AA campus, and I am so grateful that I found him, and you know, however you stay here, it doesn't matter, because I am grateful to him, because he went to like 10 meetings a week. And if you're obsessed with someone, you're going to go to 10 meetings a week. I am dedicated. I'm following this guy. I don't think he knew he was in a relationship with me, but I knew I was in a relationship with him. Anyway, you know, at 9 months, I finally, and I'm going to meetings, I have commitments, I'm sitting up front. I learned all these things by listening. I listened to everyone, whether it's because I'm a good Catholic, girl and, 12 years of Catholic school, whatever. But I listened, and I wanted what you had. And when I had 9 months, I hit that bottom where the relationship was over, and I couldn't just stay sober on meetings. I couldn't just stay sober on going to meetings. And I went to a meeting, and in Brentwood, it was a women's meeting, and there was someone that was speaking, and she was Irish, and she looked like my mom, and her name was Mary Ann. And I asked her if she would be my sponsor. And so I'm very proud that I was Mary M's first baby. That's when I really started to work this program. And Mary taught me so much. I mean, one, I started to work the steps. I wrote out my first step. I started on this second step of trying to find a God of my own understanding. And Mary was great because she was so involved, and she would say, okay, Chuck is speaking here, we're going. Okay. Cubby's speaking here, we're going. Alabama speaking here, we're going. And I would just follow Mary all over the place. And I would just have fun. I would have fun at these meetings, and I would listen to these spiritual giants that when I got sober, I was in awe of. And we started working these steps, and I learned so much. I learned to show up. That one of the things I learned was that I'm an example of Alcoholics Anonymous, and when I go to a meeting, I dress up and I look nice because I'm an example, and that may be the only time a newcomer might see you, and you want to be a good example. And I started, getting involved in hospital and institution. And I always remember Chuck C. used to say that God works through people. And I never understood it until it sort of started happening to me. When I had 30 days, I remember going to a meeting, and I was sitting next to this guy, and he says, how are you doing? I said, I'm 30 days. I'm supposed to go up. It was the Gong Show on Thursday night, Ohio. And I said, I can't go up there and take a chip. I was terrified. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know his name was Charlie Vick and that he had 20 years of sobriety. And so when they asked if someone has 30 days, Charlie raised my hand for me. And that's what we do for each other. And I learned that early on. I learned to have a home group. And I learned why a home group is so important. My home group moved me from one place to the other. My home group was Venice Beyond Baroque, and I was involved, and we had Christmas shows, and I learned that I could have fun in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I got sober, I was 23 years old, and I thought my life was over. I thought I was never going to have fun anymore because all my friends were young, and they weren't alcoholics, but they were having fun, and I was not having fun. I got involved, and I learned that if I want to feel a part of, to get a commitment and to get involved. And one of the most important things that I learned when I was new is they told me to take care of my alcoholism and everything else would take care of itself. Because when you're new, you have all these problems that you come in with. You know, what's going to happen when I get married? Am I going to be able to drink? I can't drink champagne. What am I going to do? You know, I'm not even in a relationship, far from it. And, you know, all of those things, all these problems that we think that we have, I came in with them and they just kept telling me, take care of your alcoholism and everything else will take care of itself. And sometimes if I had a decision to make, I remember Mary saying to me, what did Mary say? Think it through like a drunk. You know, if I had to make a decision, she would say, think it through like a drunk, you know. What do you have to do? And I would have to think things through to see if that was the right decision to make. And I remember this one woman saying to me, make a decision to not make any decision. And all of these things are spiritual tools that I learned along the way, but I didn't know they were spiritual. I didn't know. I just thought that they were things that I was being taught to help me get through the day. And I remember my first spiritual experience really was when I had a year and I was one of the hostesses with the mostest at Palm Springs Roundup, and Lois W. spoke and Chuck C. was there and we held hands at the end, and I remember feeling this power and seeing it in the room of Alcoholics Anonymous. And people continue to, people continue to help me through my life. I remember when I had 3 years of sobriety, I had a problem. I have no idea what the problem was, but I called this woman and she said, I have the perfect solution for you. And I said, what? She said, I have a panel up in Ventura County at the women's prison and I need someone to do a year's commitment. How is this going to help me with my problem? But of course I didn't say that. I just said, okay, and I started doing that commitment. And that commitment helped me because I had a lot of anxiety in my early years of sobriety. I was fearful of people, and I still would sometimes say I had an upset stomach instead of going to a party because it was too scary for me. But I had to, when you're driving up to Ventura with a carload of people, you actually have to talk to them. And, it helped me move past that fear. So all of these things that I'm learning in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm able to carry into my own life and find out that fear can be removed, by doing these things in AA. For years I would say, am I ever going to meet someone, blah, 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 blah. And my sponsor, Kathleen, would always say to me, you just keep going to meetings, you just keep showing up, you keep being of service, learn how to have relationships with other people. And that's what I did. I just kept, and I would still, Kathleen used to say to me, be a winner, not a whiner. Well, I guess that meant that I was a whiner. So I said, well, I better be a winner. And, all of these little things that have helped me along the way. And, we get to live life on life's terms. I continued, I've always stayed in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went through a tough time, between 7 and 10 years, and then, I was still going to meetings, but I saw that I was having all these physical problems, and I remember going to this doctor and him saying to me, it seems like you have no purpose in life. Oh, my primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic. Wow, I forgot my purpose. And all of a sudden, at 10 years sober, I had to recommit myself to Alcoholics Anonymous. And there are many times that I've had to recommit myself, whether it's get another commitment, get another sponsee, Write another 10th step, write another inventory. I've had to work these steps, I've had to use these tools to get me through life, because life is not easy sometimes. And, I finally met, when I was 19 years sober, I met my best friend, love of my life. We got married. All these dreams that I had. I got married in my mother's wedding gown, in my hometown. But you have the best of times and the worst of times. My mother was in a coma in the ICU. So I visit her in the morning and then I get married. And then the next day, my dad's celebrating 25 years sober and asks my husband and I to share at his anniversary meeting in New Jersey. And, I get to live life on life's terms, the good, the bad, the ups and downs. But the constant in my life is Alcoholics Anonymous. And my husband and I, we had 17 wonderful years together. He was in AA. He had a great group of guys that, he worked with. He had health issues, and I was able to give him a kidney, and he had 8 more years of life, and then in January, yesterday, it was 7 years that he passed, and I thought my life was over. I remember thinking, I know he's going to die, and I thought, how am I going to get through this? And I thought, I have AA. I'm going to be okay. I am going to be okay. And I remember talking to Kathleen at the time, and I said to her, I find myself going to a meeting every day. I feel like a newcomer. I feel so lost again. And she said, well, this is, you get to do what you did as a newcomer. You get to do all of these things that you did as a newcomer. Show up every day, get commitments, say hi to people, sponsor people. And early on, a couple of days after Dallas died, I opened my dad's big book. And in there was this pamphlet that he had in there. And it had the 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer, 11th step prayer, and it had the promises, 1, 2, 3. And I started reading the promises every day because it was so painful, the grief. And I needed that hope that as a newcomer you need to have when you come into Alcoholics Anonymous, or even when you're going through a tough time, you need to have that hope that you're going to get through it. And I knew I was going to get through it because I learned that. I remember Mary saying to me years ago, I remember saying to her, why is this happening? And she said, you know what, honey, I don't know. Maybe the only reason is because one day you're going to be able to tell a newcomer that you got through this and you got to the other side. And I started reading those promises every day. Earnestly, I needed to know that that I would have a new freedom and a new happiness, that I would not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, that I would comprehend the word serenity, and I would know peace again. And, at 6 months, a friend of mine's husband died. And I remember thinking, can I go to someone else's service? But what Mary had taught me years before is you get to share with someone else that you've gone through it, and you are walking through something difficult. And I went to that service, and when my friend called me 2 weeks later and said, I don't know how I'm going to get through another day. And I said to her, why don't you start reading the promises? Because they helped me so much. Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a life beyond my wildest dreams, not just on the outside, but on the inside. I didn't even know who I was when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's not like I came in here and searched for myself. I had to search for myself in you, in these meetings. And I had to get out of myself. And I so self-centered and selfish. And everything that I learned in those early years, I have been able to use during these difficult times. I have had to go back to basics. Go to a meeting every day. Stay in contact with my sober sisters. Pray. Write. My sponsor, Kathleen, is really good about, let's put pen to paper here. Let's write about it. And I will tell you, about 2 years ago, I fractured my hip, and I have been on crutches for 2 years. And not easy. On crutches and in pain for 2 years. But the most wonderful thing happened because I couldn't really get to meetings. And it's a terrible thing, this pandemic. And I know people have really suffered and it's been a big struggle. But for me, it has saved me. Because I have been able to be on Zoom. And when the pandemic hit, I started these women's meetings because I used to work with my patients on Zoom all the time, so I was really comfortable with Zoom. And these meetings are still going on now. And I didn't have time to think about myself, my pain, blah, 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 blah. I just didn't have time to think about that stuff when you're getting a speaker and a leader for this meeting and that meeting, and you're working with people and you're talking to your sober sisters, and it was hard. I don't know how I got through it, honestly. But the way I did get through it, and this I learned early on in my sobriety, is that I only have today. That if I can get through today and put my head on the pillow sober, I'm a success. We're all a success. And I stayed in today. I would say to myself, I wonder when I'm going to walk again. And I would say, well, I don't have to think about that today because it's not here. And I couldn't work as a nurse anymore, and so I couldn't stay in the house that my late husband and I bought in the 90s, and so I had to sell my home. But I never did any of this alone. I called my sober sisters, and when I was selling this home and I had to pack this up on crutches, in pain, they came and helped me. And I have never had to do anything alone. And if you're new, you never have to do anything alone. And the one thing that I did, because those last few months before I actually moved out of the house were so hard, so hard. And I remember talking to my friend Barbara, and I said, I am using every tool in the toolbox today just to try and get through today. And that meant calling people, praying like I've never prayed before, and just trying to get through that day. And I was able to get through that day, and I have no idea where I'm going. I'm staying at a friend's apartment, but it's okay. It's all okay, because I'm sober, and I continue to find peace of mind and people that I get to know and feel comfortable with on Zoom. Yesterday, a friend of mine from London sent me a message. Hey, Mary's speaking in London. You want the ID? Yeah. So I got to hear Mary do 6 and 7. I don't even know where the meeting was, but I have fun in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have fun in my life. I have a lot of problems that are not resolved. I don't know when they're going to be resolved, but I don't have to figure it out, because I took the third step. I took that third step with Mary. I took it with my sponsor, Kathleen, and I have been able to turn my will and my life over to God. I don't have to figure these things out. All I have to do is take care of my alcoholism, and everything else will take care of itself. And I continue to do that one day at a time. And I get to breathe in faith and breathe out fear, like my friend said when she sent me that text message tonight. And I get to know that I don't ever have to do this alone. I have found a God of my own understanding in these rooms. It took a long time to seek that God. I still seek God. I still read my little spiritual books in the morning. I say my little prayers in the morning. I do the same things that I learned years ago that Mary taught me. And I continue to do those things because if I keep those things in my life on a regular basis, I can handle anything. I can handle anything one day at a time. And so recently my sponsor, we have this meeting, and we've been reading the Alan McGinnis pamphlet on Members' Eye View of Alcoholics Anonymous. We've been reading through the book, and then we've been reading through everything. And I loved at the very end of Members' Eye View, and he says, someone asked him, what did you find here in Alcoholics Anonymous? And he said, I found that the blind can see, the lame can walk, and people like you and I can live life